part of the IOM Radio Network.
IPMNation.com.
Donald Trump continues to crush everything in his primary path on his way to the nomination, but it's still too close to call in Michigan for the Democrats tonight. But first, before we get into all that, Slicko from Slicko's World joins us via telephone. He has an announcement to make regarding Season 3 of his show, and we will chat with him for a bit. It is Tuesday, March 8th, 2016, 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone. Matt Connarton Unleashed starts right now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on this Tuesday evening. Another sort of a mini Super Tuesday. Not a ton of primaries and caucuses today, but important ones, the ones that there were or are ongoing. I'm sure polls have closed everywhere at this point, but let's see. Well, we've got a bunch of stuff to get to. Slicko from Slicko's World is supposed to be joining us, as I mentioned in the intro, but I just tried calling him, and he is MIA. So hopefully everything is okay. But I'm sure we'll hear from him. If he calls, he calls. If he doesn't, we will carry on with other things to discuss tonight. But if you are listening live, of course, you can call in yourself if you'd like. We have an open phone line at the moment, 617-9174-IPM. That's IPM as in IPM Nation, 617-9174-IPM. You can also, of course, reach us in the chat room at IPMNation.com/live2. You can tweet me at any time at Matt Connarton or post on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And, of course, we do broadcast 5 nights a week on IPM Nation 2 from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire. And it's a Tuesday night. And, of course, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we also have the honor and privilege of being carried on OTR FM, the premium channel on the OMTimes radio network. So hello to all of you who are listening on OTR FM. And I haven't mentioned it in a while, so I'll just go ahead and remind everybody not to brag. But we were the first broadcast on the new OTR FM, the premium channel on the OMTimes radio network. So we were selected to be the first ones. We were the maiden voyage on the new channel, so, or newish channel. It's been a while now, but and of course, if you're listening to us via the podcast, what can I say? You should try checking it out live sometime. I'm just kidding. I know that people are busy and whatnot, and they have schedules and whatever. But I mean, we are on at 11 o'clock at night. You should be available by then. I don't mean to guilt trip you. Anyway, of course I do. No, it's a new marketing tactic I'm using. So, of course, today in Michigan, Michigan's a big primary. That's considered to be, I think that's winner take all, if I'm not mistaken. And that has currently right now, again, if you're listening live at this moment, according to Politico, Sanders is leading Clinton in Michigan. And a win would be a major upset for the Vermont senator. Clinton easily took Mississippi earlier in the night. So Clinton apparently crushed Sanders in Mississippi. But if he wins in Michigan, that's really good for him. And that debate the other night, that Democratic debate, was in Michigan, and it was in Flint, Michigan, to be specific. So which of course obviously has been in the news quite a bit lately. Because of the water situation there. So it sounds like maybe not. There's no way to quantify whether or not the debate performance of Bernie Sanders specifically did a lot to help him with Michigan voters, but it might have. And, I think he did very well. But like I said last night on the show, too, I think that pretty consistently Sanders has outclassed Hillary Clinton in these debates. He comes across as the populist that he is, and she comes across as really just another corporatist candidate for hire. That's been a consistent theme of these debates. Meanwhile, Trump took both Michigan and Mississippi. But there's another article on here on Politico that I'm looking at, which looks interesting to me. It says, Marco races to preserve Miami edge. He's really trying in Florida to do everything he can to make sure that he wins Florida. The reason this is particularly interesting to me is last night on the show, I was talking about how some are actually, some insiders within the party are apparently, the Republican Party, trying to convince Rubio that now is the time to get out. Because, look, the reality is there's no chance. There is no path to the Republican nomination for Marco Rubio. After Trump, the only real alternative that people are taking seriously, even remotely, is Ted Cruz. And there really is no path, no clear path. I mean, it's possible. It's not mathematically impossible. If it were, they would have dropped out. But there really, as far as I can tell, there's no clear path to the nomination for Ted Cruz either. But so Rubio is in that point here where he's got to think about his future. The dude's only 44 years old. So is Ted Cruz, by the way, but it's easy to forget that they're both 44 because, well, for one thing, Rubio looks much younger than he is. He's got very boyish features. And Cruz, on the other hand, just seems old. I'm always a little stunned when I'm reminded that he's only 44. He just comes across as this stodgy old conservative. He seems at least a decade beyond his years. But Rubio, he's young. He's got a long political career ahead of him. And, he's got to be thinking, and I'm sure he is thinking, let me put it this way. Marco Rubio at this point isn't running for president in 2016 at this point. He's got to keep up appearances, but he really isn't. He's running for either vice president, and I think he's probably already blown any chance of that. Talking about Trump's small hands isn't going to get him the VP nod. And he's running for president in 2020 or 2024. He's not running for president in 2016. There is no Rubio 16 at this point. And he knows that, and his campaign knows that. So he has to be thinking about the future. So I would imagine, unless they're all just completely delusional, which is possible, but I would imagine, I would have to believe that the current dialogue within the Rubio campaign is, how do we get out of this but still look really good? In other words, Rubio, he's got to, he has to save face, and he has to be able to bow out looking strong, looking like he's ready to face off with Hillary Clinton in 2020, or with whomever in 2024. Obviously, if Trump wins the presidency, then Trump, I would assume, unless Trump only serves one term. So, a lot can happen, but so they have to be looking to the future. And part of that political calculus has to be, is it worth risking Florida? Here's the thing. If Rubio loses Florida, his home state, and then gets out, he doesn't get out looking strong. He gets out looking weak. It all hinges on Florida. Is it worth staying in? Or does he look stronger if he gets out now and endorses Ted Cruz? Or gets out now and doesn't necessarily endorse anyone. I guess he doesn't have to endorse somebody, but it is kind of customary when you get out, you endorse one of the remaining rivals. Although this is a unique situation, so maybe he doesn't get out and endorse anybody. But the risk is this. He's got to, if he stays in for Florida, he's got to win Florida. If he can't win his home state primary, then that is damaging for the future. And in politics, people tend to have very long memories. So that's going to stick with him. So his best scenario is to be able to at least win Florida, at least win that one primary. And then, of course, he can't just get out immediately once he's accomplished that. He can't win a primary and then say, okay, now I'm getting out. So he'll have to win that primary, and then whatever is after Florida, he'll lose that primary and then announce he's getting out. He sees no path to the nomination. But it's a risk. And part of also, too, what they might be discussing within the Rubio campaign is, if he gets out before Florida, does that make him look weak? And I think there's a way, they can spin it so that he can get out before Florida and not look weak and not look like he was worried about Florida. Just, hey, guys, we're out of money. The campaign can't continue, and we see no path to the nomination, so I'm getting out now. And for the sake of my home state of Florida, I'll let them choose one of the remaining candidates or something. But as of this moment, it looks like he's staying in. We'll dive into this article a little bit more, this article that's on Politico, when we come back from the break, and then we'll move on to some other stuff from today. And who knows, maybe Slicko will be with us via telephone at that point. We'll see. I hope everything's okay. All right. We're worried about you, Slicko. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Matt Connarton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connarton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connarton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on OTR FM and, of course, IPM Nation 2. We are 5 nights a week on IPM Nation 2 at 11 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, Tuesday and Thursday evenings, we are also carried on the wonderful OTR FM, the premium channel, on the OMTimes Radio Network. Don't forget the television edition of Unleashed every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, live on IPM Nation TV. And if you can't see the show live because it's in the middle of the day and you're working or you have school or you're doing something that you think is more important, I guess I can understand that. We do get it up on YouTube, usually by about 9 p.m. Eastern. So there is that. So be sure to watch this week. I don't have a guest or anything booked for tomorrow. I'll probably just be talking more primary stuff. However, Thursday night here on the program, I will be joined once again by economist Professor Brian Ogstad. He has a short 5 or 6 minute podcast that we currently run kind of randomly in rotation on both IPM Nation 1 and 2 right now. But Brian was also on the show a few weeks ago, and I did invite him back. So he's going to be on tomorrow night. I'm sorry, not tomorrow night, Thursday night, right here on Matt Connarton Unleashed. And I look forward to talking to him. I have a couple of questions that I want to ask him about economics. It's actually one of those things where the last time, which was also the first time that I had him on the show, I mean, we had a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to him, but it was like literally right after the show. I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I should have asked him about this, and oh, I was going to ask him about that. So we'll have him back and we'll resolve all of that, and it'll be a lot of fun. Let's see. So let's dive into this article a little bit more. It's fairly short, but here's what Politico is saying about Rubio in Florida. And again, this was posted today. By the way, Rubio didn't win anything today. Of course not. It says here, Dateline Miami, Marco Rubio has come home to preserve a shot at the White House, or as he's calling it these days, La Casa Blanca. As his opponents began racking up fresh wins in contests throughout the country, the Florida senator has retrenched to his roots. Rubio is campaigning more in Spanish, especially in his home country of Miami-Dade, which has 274,000 Hispanic Republicans. Many speak Spanish as a preferred first language. Oh, that's got a... I bet the rednecks in Florida just lose their minds over that. Many speak Spanish as a preferred first language, particularly in, I'm never sure how to say this, Hialeah? I don't know. I butchered that. The county's most Republican, Hialeah? Maybe it's Hialeah or Hialeah? The county's most Republican city with a 95% Hispanic population where Rubio campaigns on Wednesday. By the way, okay, so that, a little side note here. So that county they are 95% Republican, and they speak Spanish. They speak mainly Spanish as a preferred first language. So, I've been saying for years, there is an opportunity for the Republican Party to reach out to Hispanics. Part of that, of course, is stop talking about building walls and deporting everybody. But there are other ways to do it, because Hispanics tend to be culturally conservative. They tend to be religious. Many of them tend to be Catholic, and they do share some values and issues with the Republican Party, with conservatives. So, and this is an example of why there is an opportunity there. This one county where they prefer to speak Spanish, that's how Hispanic it is also 95% Republican. Let's see. Continuing on. At the same time, a super PAC backing him has been running Spanish-language TV ads, and another political committee is advertising on Spanish-language radio with a spot featuring Latin crooner Willie Chirino, an icon in the Cuban exile community that's the backbone of the Miami area's Republican Party. Chirino says in the ad, quote, "We can make history when Marco Rubio arrives at the White House. Marco fills us with pride, and he takes with him our yearnings and dreams," unquote. Oh, my goodness, I had no idea. Although I'll tell you what I did know about Marco Rubio. His father was a bartender. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you've heard him mention that. Rubio's campaign in the past week, and his mother was a maid. Rubio's campaign in the past week has begun targeting Hispanic Republicans in 3 specially identified sectors of the county to vote early in person or with vote-by-mail ballots, and they are voting at relatively high rates now. Though Hispanics account for about 73% of registered Republicans in the county, their early voting turnout rate is about 79%. Wow. According to an analysis by University of Florida political science professor Daniel A. Smith. Geez, no wonder all the focus on that one county. That's just incredible. Just how those voters voted won't be known until their ballots are tallied on Election Day, Tuesday. Ann Smith and others wonder how many voted for Miami's other bilingual candidate, Jeb Bush, before he dropped out on February 20th. As many as 20,000 absentee ballots in Miami-Dade alone might have been cast while Jeb was still running. Smith said Rubio will need a large turnout in his home county, which is Florida's most populous, to remain competitive in the state. Rubio has been losing to Donald Trump in every Florida poll since August. Rubio's fellow Cuban-American Senator Ted Cruz is in a more distant third. There's more to this article if you want to read the whole thing. It is up at Politico, but yeah, I mean, if he doesn't win Florida, that's pretty troubling, and he'll have to bow out if he can't win Florida. Let's see. Meanwhile, it says here, Trump wins big in both Mississippi and Michigan. He didn't have a great weekend. Cruz, I think, won one or maybe two primaries or caucuses or whatever. I hate the caucuses or caucus. Apparently, too, I didn't know this until recently. You're really not even supposed to say caucuses. It's supposed to be a Latin plural. You're supposed to say caucus, which just sounds strange. But then again, maybe I'm biased because I hate Latin plurals. No, maybe I'm biased because I hate the whole caucus system. I think I'm just going to keep saying caucuses. I think the caucuses should just be done away with. They should all be primaries. Caucuses are a circus. Let's see. It says here, Donald Trump crushed his rivals on Tuesday, handily winning Michigan and Mississippi and dealing body blows to Ted Cruz and John Kasich, as well as a Republican establishment desperate to stop him. Trump's victories added dozens of delegates to his increasingly insurmountable lead in the march up to the big winner-take-all contests in Ohio and Florida next week, and served to squash fervent hope among anti-Trump forces that his weekend losses signaled lasting vulnerability. God, I'm to digress for a moment too with this. I'm just thinking now, what if he not only manages to beat Rubio in Florida, which I think is actually very plausible, what if he just crushes Rubio? Like, what if it's just a landslide? How? I mean, in such a Hispanic state, the more I think about it, the less plausible it is, but it is possible. And again, that's got to be, obviously they've decided he's staying in through Florida, but man, they've got to be worried about that. Because again, like I said, Rubio's not running for president in 2016. He's running for president in 2020 or 2024 at this point, clearly. Let's see. The Manhattan billionaire said in his victory speech, it's just something very special. I hope that the Republicans will embrace it, unquote. Trump easily took Michigan, with television networks projecting 38% of the vote as soon as the polls closed. Kasich and Cruz were battling for second, but combined, they accounted for 50% of a vote that was still being counted. See, that's why when you've got if Kasich and Cruz are battling for second, that means Rubio comes in fourth in Michigan. That's why I'm thinking he might get his ass handed to him in Florida. It's going to look bad. I almost feel sorry for him. In Mississippi, Trump took 48% of the vote, denying Cruz another southern state. Yeah, that also is huge. In a southern state, I mean, clearly, if he's able to do that well in red southern states, where there are lots and lots and lots of evangelical Christians, and he's just crushing an evangelical Christian who is in the race, in the form of Ted Cruz, then, I mean, Trump is just unstoppable. He's unstoppable. I keep saying the Republican establishment, they need to just embrace the horror and lean into it. There's nothing they can do. he's going to, at the rate he's going, he's going to have too many delegates for there to even be a floor fight, a contested convention. That's not even going to be plausible at the rate he's going. If he can win by that much in a state like Mississippi, he is unstoppable at this point. Once again, as much as I hate to say it, congratulations in advance to President-elect Hillary Rodham Clinton. Let's see. During a long, triumphant speech after the results, Trump ambled through a variation of his stump speech and took a swing at the Republican allied groups that have spent millions of dollars against him. Oh, this ought to be good. Quote, "I want to thank the special interests and the lobbyists," unquote. He joked to supporters gathered in Florida, where Trump is making his next big push to his next target, Marco Rubio, out of the race. Michigan amounted to an ugly defeat for Kasich, who once banked on the state as his first step toward must-win Ohio. Now, still winless, the Ohio governor is under pressure, along with Rubio, whose poor showing Tuesday simply aids to a narrative of a campaign on life support, frustrating establishment Republicans who recognize they are running out of time and options. By the way, okay, so you know what they should have done, these establishment Republicans who are so worried about Trump? They should have coalesced around Kasich, the best candidate, instead of hemming and hawing over, what do we do? Do we figure out a way to back Cruz or Rubio, or do we like Chris Christie when he was still in the race, or whatever? They should have gone with the best guy in the race, but they never do, and they never learn. It's incredible. All right, we got to take a break. We're only halfway done, so stick with me. More Unleashed coming up. Maybe we'll hear from the prodigal Slicko. Maybe not. I don't know. I just messaged him on Facebook, and I haven't heard back, so stay with me. I'll be back.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Come on down. You're the next listener of the Joe Show's second annual Salute to Game Shows, Price is Right, Uncensored, a two-part series airing on Wednesday, March 9th and Wednesday, March the 16th. We will take you back all the way to September 4th, 1972, the first day Price is Right aired on CBS. The Joe Show speaks with longtime former producer Roger Dobkowitz, $1 Million Spectacular announcer Randy West, and longtime former Price is Right legendary host Bob Barker. So mark down Wednesday, March 9th and Wednesday, March 16th, 9 p.m. Eastern, OMTimes Radio on The Joe Show.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on this Tuesday evening. Coming to you from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire, where tomorrow it's supposed to be almost 70 degrees. So very, very happy about the warm weather. I hope it's warm where you are. Well, unless you prefer the cold, of course. There are some people who like cold weather. Those people are strange. We have not located Slicko, so we do have a phone line open. So if anyone does want to opine tonight, you know who I haven't heard from in a while now is Dave Ridley of the Ridley Report. Dave was calling in pretty consistently for a little bit, and I just stopped hearing from him. So, Dave, if you're listening, we miss you. We miss you, Dave Ridley. But Dave's probably pretty damn busy these days. But check out the Ridley Report if you haven't. Just you can find it right on YouTube. But if you would like to call tonight, 617-9174-IPM or 4476 if you prefer numeric to alphanumeric, as some people do. Also, of course, we do have the chat room open at ipmnation.com/live2, as we are broadcasting on ipmnation.com live 2 5 nights a week at 11 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, if it's Tuesday or Thursday night, as it is in this case, a Tuesday night, we are also carried on OTR FM, the premium channel, on the OMTimes radio network. By the way, this coming Friday, we are adding yet another new show to the IPM Nation network on IPM Nation Live 1 at 1 p.m. Eastern, starting this Friday. State of Corruption, hosted by Mike Gill, and that will be a weekly program that you can hear every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 1. State of Corruption, hosted by Mike Gill. Mike's, he's never been a guest on this show, but he's been a few times on another show that I do with the Honorable Gary S. Hopper called Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. So Mike's an interesting guy. So really looking forward to, and he is a controversial figure. And by the way, and so for those of you who aren't familiar with him, you know, because he's kind of a regional figure here in the Manchester, New Hampshire area, but he has been in the national news and whatnot. But of course, on the show we have listeners across North America. But Mike is he has there's this, what do you call it, an animated billboard? It's a billboard. It's on South Willow Street, which is a major road here in Manchester where we broadcast from. And on this animated billboard, there are these videos of just him calling out people by name who he feels are corrupt and have done corrupt things. Like, for example, United States Senator Jean Shaheen and her husband. You know, they're from New Hampshire. They represent New Hampshire in the U.S. Senate. And he says terrible things about them and some other folks. So he's, you know, the guy's got some balls. I'll say that. And he's very interesting. So anyway, check that out. State of Corruption, coming this week to IPM Nation. I mean the show, State of Corruption. I don't mean it's a State of Corruption at IPM Nation. That would be terrible. We'd have to have an investigation if that were the case. Okay, so I was looking at this on HuffPost. It says here, Hillary Clinton nabs victory in Mississippi with help from Bill Clinton. The former president campaigned on his wife's behalf. I have to assume that this has to do with the demography of Mississippi. It's about 40% black. So, and Bill Clinton historically does very well with African Americans. When he was elected president in 1992, the author Toni Morrison, you've probably heard this. This is where that came from. It was Toni Morrison who called him the first black president, just meaning that Bill Clinton was the first president that African Americans felt they could relate to or could relate to them. I'm not entirely sure I understand exactly why that is, if it's because he's a Southerner or what, but But there seemed to be that connection there. So he came to the rescue for Hillary and helped her win Mississippi, which is a very black state. What is interesting about this to me is I wondered how this dynamic would play out, because if you remember when Hillary ran in 2008, she really struggled with the black vote. And for obvious reasons, Barack Obama got into the race, and of course he was capturing the black vote. And what was particularly interesting about that to me was the frustration of Bill Clinton. He could barely contain his anger publicly. There were several instances where Slick Willie, as you know, the calm and cool character that he is, he kind of lost his temper. There was one that I remember very vividly where he was, it was South Carolina. They were coming up on the South Carolina primary, and there were some charges of racism, which you would never expect Bill Clinton to be the on the receiving end of this, but there were some charges of, and I wish I could remember a specific example of what precipitated this, but there were some charges of some subtle racism coming from the Clinton campaign against their chief rival, Barack Obama, at that time. And I remember Bill Clinton being asked about that in a phone interview with somebody at NPR. And he got very angry at that particular question. And as he's hanging up, he thought he was already disconnected or thought he was off the air already. As he's hanging up, you hear him saying to somebody else who was in the room with him, I don't think I should have to take that kind of shit. And that went out over the air, and he was obviously very, very flustered, very angry at that. And he was clearly very angry in 2008 because, you know, he and Hillary, obviously, they believed that she had a clear path and would be coronated the Democratic nominee. And then Barack Obama shows up and steals the whole thing. Not literally. I mean, he won fair and square, but, you know, steals the show, as they say. So I kind of wondered what would be happening this time around, because now they're, you know, would they let Bill out of his cage? because you know, now it's kind of in some ways, I mean, there's a lot of differences, but in some ways they're dealing with a similar dynamic in 2016 where it's supposed to be Hillary's turn again. And Bernie Sanders has been more of a threat than I think anyone imagined he could possibly be when he first got into the race. And but so far, we haven't seen nearly as much of Bill Clinton in 2016 as we did in 2008, which could be for a variety of things. There could be a number of reasons and factors involved, you know, but I've just kind of wondered, and maybe someday we'll find out why that is. And if some of that is they're keeping him on a short leash because they don't want him losing his temper again. But he was able to ride to the rescue, apparently, in Mississippi and helped Hillary win big. Let's look at this quickly. It says here, again, this is from HuffPost. Hillary Clinton easily won the Democratic primary in Mississippi on Tuesday, aided by a strong infrastructure that she and her husband, former President Bill Clinton, have built in the state over decades. By winning Mississippi, Clinton continued her streak of victories across the Deep South, where minority voters make up a significant share of the Democratic electorate. Mississippi's population is nearly 40% African American. Leading up to Tuesday's primary vote, Clinton led in a poll of likely Democratic primary voters by more than 50 percentage points over her rival, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Mississippi's Democratic primary awards 41 delegates on a proportional basis, so they're not a winner-take-all state. But Sanders has already all but ceded the state to Clinton, given how solid the support for Clinton is among Democratic voters. So I guess he probably didn't really do a whole lot of campaigning there. Underscoring how little Sanders focused on Mississippi was a fundraising email his campaign sent out on Tuesday. The email says, tonight, Michigan votes. Next week, Illinois, Ohio, Florida, Missouri, and North Carolina follow suit, unquote. There was no mention of Mississippi. Wow. And while Clinton herself did not visit the state ahead of the primary, Bill Clinton held a rally on Friday at Jackson State University, a historically black college in the state capital. And President Clinton told the students, quote, you need a change agent, and she's the best I ever saw, unquote. Mississippi is the last Democratic primary contest in the South and the sixth to go to Clinton. She has bested Sanders in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Can't say I'm surprised. I've said all along that, I've said all along that South Carolina would be her firewall, because even if she lost, Iowa and New Hampshire, she could afford to lose those, which it didn't turn out exactly that way, but she could have afforded to lose both of those and then go on to South Carolina and still win that and win big. And that would set her up nicely for Super Tuesday and for the other Southern primaries. And the math would be on her side, and she would be on her way to the Democratic nomination. And, again, it continues with Mississippi now. And I think that, she is still on her way to the Democratic nomination, because in the South, they're not going to vote, as I've said right along, they're not going to vote for the Jewish guy from Vermont with the Brooklyn accent. They're going to go with the Clintons. They love the Clintons. So, that's, I think we're rapidly approaching the end of the Sanders campaign, at least as far as it being a credible threat. But I hope he continues to stick around and be a thorn in her side. It's a lot of fun. Bit of a parallel to that, by the way, but we'll talk about that when we come back. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Welcome back, everybody, as we cruise into our final segment tonight on Matt Connarton Unleashed. Don't forget, you can hear the show 5 nights a week on IPM Nation 2, one of the three live channels on the IPM Nation live station, of course. The IPM Nation live station broadcasting 24/7 from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire, and is powered by Ambit Energy. You can save more on your energy bills. Go to ipmnation.ambitrabbit.com. Trust me, you'll be very happy that you did. I can attest to that from personal experience. And I guess we're going to give up on Slicko for tonight. I hope everything's okay. We'll have to have him on another night. But I will, since he didn't make it on, I'll just go ahead and spill the beans, as they say. I don't know if anyone really says that. I don't think I've heard that expression in a long time. I don't know if anyone really says it anymore, but I just did. So I'm going to bring it back. So on April 17th, the week of 420, and that is not coincidental, Sunday, April 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 2 will be the return live of Slicko's World. So season 3 of Slicko's World, hosted by Slicko, will be happening on April 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And so that's exciting. Of course, you can check out past episodes of Slicko's World at ipmnation.com/Slicko. And Slicko has been a member of the he's one of the guys who's been around IPM Nation from almost the beginning when we launched back in 2007. He's been with us for a long time. He's one of the originals on IPM Nation. So very happy about that. And I've played with Slicko too a few times on stage with Team Happiness. I was the bass player for I think 2 or 3 shows. I'm not sure exactly how many. It was all a blur because I was also at the time playing a few shows here and there with Project Hybrid, which was related to Team Happiness. It's all very confusing, but so I've shared the stage with Slicko as well as this network. So anyway, looking forward to that, and we'll have to have him on again soon to chat. And like I said, I hope everything's all right. Don't forget, of course, tomorrow, Wednesday, if you're listening to this live on Tuesday night, that is, tomorrow is Wednesday. And at 2 p.m. Eastern, of course, I will be on Matt Connarton Unleashed, the television edition. Also, too, more often than not, I'm on the show preceding that at 1 p.m. Eastern, Ward 13 with John Hopwood. I have not heard from John Hopwood this week. I'm on there most weeks, but I only show up if I'm invited. I don't presume anything. He's never asked me to be his official co-host, although I seem to be his de facto co-host more often than not. And I really do. I enjoy doing the show with him, and sometimes he sticks around for my show. But I haven't heard from him yet this week, so maybe I'll get a text from him in the morning inviting me on. Sometimes that happens too, but he did talk about recently with Thomas Massengale, who also joins us from across the pond via Skype sometimes on John's show. They were talking about doing a baseball show where they were just going to spend the hour discussing baseball. And I did say, and maybe that's what they're doing tomorrow. Maybe that's why I haven't heard from John, because I remember saying that, yeah, I'll have to tap out for that one. I'm not a sports guy. I've never been a sports guy. It's not my thing. So I don't know anything about baseball. I would be absolutely useless. So maybe that's what they're doing this week on Ward 13. I don't know. I mean, I am a lifelong wrestling fan, but that's obviously scripted. That's not a real sport. That's entertainment. But the only sport that I follow very casually at best is MMA. I do know, everyone I'm sure knows by now, Holly Holm, who had defeated Ronda Rousey for the title in the UFC, for the women's title. I forget what it says. Women's bantamweight, is it? She decided not to wait for Ronda Rousey to come back before defending, and she went ahead and defended against Miesha Tate, who ended up winning. So Miesha Tate already winning the belt from Holly Holm. So now that sets up Miesha Tate versus Ronda Rousey. And I guess Ronda Rousey is coming back sooner than expected now. So, she's beaten Miesha Tate before, so I guess she figures she'll do it again. So we'll see. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see. Bernie Sanders. So it has been called, the race in Michigan, the primary. When we first got on the air tonight, it looked like Bernie was going to win, but they hadn't officially called it yet. But they've called it. He did win. Only a 2-point victory, but still, it's a significant one. I mean, Clinton crushed him in Mississippi, but Bernie managed to pull out a win in a very important state by winning Michigan. So good for him. Like I said, I still think Clinton's inevitable, as I said before the break, but this is a significant victory for him, and I'm glad to see it. As you know, as regular listeners know, I'm not. But for newer listeners, I don't want to give anybody the wrong idea. I'm not a Bernie Sanders supporter. I'm not a socialist, so therefore I'm not a supporter of Bernie Sanders. But you can like somebody and agree with them on some things, and without necessarily wanting to see them be president. I don't want to see Bernie Sanders as president, but although, as I've mentioned before too, if the most important job as president is being commander-in-chief, out of any of these people, I do think he would be the least likely to get us into a lot of unnecessary war and conflict. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to end up voting for whoever the Libertarian nominee is. But and I have endorsed Darryl W. Perry. But I like Bernie Sanders, and it's fun watching him make Hillary sweat it out. And, the parallel that I mentioned earlier is, I was thinking about it again today. Jerry Brown, who is now, God, politics is so strange. Jerry Brown, who is currently the governor of California, in 1992 was then the governor of California. Obviously, there was a long break, very long break, decades between his tenures as governor. But in 92, he was the former governor of California. So actually, there's an even longer gap there. But Jerry Brown was kind of making Bill Clinton sweat it out. Bill Clinton, who was on what seemed to be a pretty clear path to the Democratic nomination in 92, when everyone else had faded away, it was Jerry Brown, who was a very liberal Democrat, a liberal's liberal, a California liberal, which isn't really much different than being, what Bernie is, a Democratic socialist. And it was kind of a similar dynamic. You had Bill Clinton, this sort of moderate new Democrat was a term they were using then. I haven't heard that term in a long time, but new Democrat, which was really sort of the brand name that they came up with for Democrats who were not particularly liberal, but more sort of DLC, Democratic Leadership Council style Democrats, much more moderate centrist Democrats. And that was the wing of the party that Bill Clinton represented. And then you've got Jerry Brown, who represented the far left liberal side. And Jerry Brown, toward the end, when everyone else, all of Clinton's other rivals had faded away, Jerry Brown was the one hanging in there. And Jerry Brown started winning some primaries and was forcing Clinton to kind of sweat it out. And it occurs to me, too, some of the things that you hear Bernie Sanders saying to Hillary Clinton during these debates remind me a lot of the kinds of things that Jerry Brown used to say to Bill Clinton during the 1992 campaign. It's a very interesting parallel, and Jerry Brown was a thorn in Bill Clinton's side, very much like Bernie Sanders is being a thorn in Hillary's side. It's just interesting to me how history kind of repeats. And a lot of liberals, see, like I said, I mean, the party ended up nominating Clinton, and he was this sort of new Democrat. But a lot of liberals, true liberals, didn't trust Clinton because he seemed to be so moderate and so sort of corporatist. They didn't trust him, and they thought he was going to sell them out at the first opportunity, which, by the way, he did. For example, during the campaign, he talked about ending the ban on gays in the military. He said, on day one, I'm going to sign an executive order ending the ban on gays in the military. And then we ended up with this compromise, don't ask, don't tell, because it turned out Clinton didn't have any balls when it came to that issue. It was easy to talk, but then once he got there, he just couldn't do it. Bill Clinton, of course, signed the Defense of Marriage Act, or as I like to call it, the Indefensible Defense of Marriage Act. And liberals were furious with him over that. I was furious with him over that, and I would consider myself at that time. I was a liberal. I was far more liberal than I am now. I was a pretty committed, dedicated Democrat at that time. I'd grown up in a Democratic household, and that's how I thought. So, so they didn't trust Bill Clinton, and he proved why they shouldn't have, why they were right not to trust him. And obviously people don't trust Hillary either. And I think there's far more reason not to trust Hillary based on a few decades worth of history. So it's just interesting, the dynamics of it. I do so love I love the politics of it. I love I love the dynamics and the drama and sometimes the comedy when you factor in Trump of politics. Because in the end, to me, I mean, I love it and I'm passionate about it, but it's really the entertainment of it that I love, because I don't believe in any of these people, really. I mean, and that's why I have to go third party, because both the Republicans and Democrats, these people are all clowns to some variation. Like I said, I kind of like Bernie and I kind of like John Kasich, but in the end, I don't believe. Check. Hello. Oh, I'm back. Sorry about that, everybody. I kind of lost, I lost audio there for a minute. Well, we're out of time. Okay. Good night, everybody.